Ava Reed knew how to move quietly. She pressed her palm against her swollen belly as she stepped into the marble lobby of Mercy Tower Hospital. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the air thick with lemon disinfectant. She looked like any other exhausted patient, cheap cardigan, hair pulled back, a folded ultrasound tucked inside a second-hand purse. No one watching her could guess that every step was deliberate, every detail rehearsed. At the triage desk, she whispered her name. Ava Reed. 32 weeks. Cramping. The clerk barely looked up. Insurance? Ava hesitated. None. Moments later, Dr. Ethan Blake appeared. Perfect jawline, polished coat, the kind of doctor who treated people like case files. He scanned her chart, expression cold. Vitals stable. No coverage. This isn't an emergency. Try the free clinic. Nurse Camila Ortiz frowned. She's dizzy. Blood pressure's high. Ethan's voice cut sharp. Policy. No pay, no priority. The waiting room went still. A grandmother clutched her rosary tighter. A delivery driver shook his head. Whispers stirred like restless wind. Ava pressed a hand to her belly. Please. Just listen to my baby. Ethan turned away. Next patient. The automatic doors slid open just then. Eleanor Blake, hospital board chair, Ethan's mother, stepped inside. Sunglasses low, white lilies in her hand, posture that commanded rooms. She paused when she heard Ava's voice crack into a quiet sob. Dr. Blake, she said sharply. What's happening here? Ethan stiffened. Non-emergent. No coverage. She can wait. Eleanor's gaze fixed on Ava, catching the exhaustion, the dignity, the faint bruise half hidden near her hairline. Something inside her stirred, a shadow from her past. And Ava Reed, who looked so small and desperate in that moment, lowered her eyes and whispered, I didn't come here for charity. I came here for truth. The hallway outside room 3 buzzed with the muted rhythm of a hospital morning, stretchers rolling, pagers beeping, whispers darting like shadows. But inside, the air was taut. Ava Reed sat upright on the narrow bed, her hand anchored to the curve of her belly. Nurse Camila adjusted the fetal monitor, and the steady thump of a heartbeat filled the room. Ava exhaled softly, as if every sound confirmed something only she knew. Eleanor Blake stood nearby, arms folded, posture regal but eyes unsettled. She'd walked these halls for decades, yet something about this woman tugged at her instincts. Ava's stillness wasn't resignation, it was observation, quiet and deliberate. Ethan lingered by the door, irritation sharp in every movement. This is protocol abuse. Patients like her clogged the system. No insurance, no priority, those are the rules. Rules? Eleanor's tone cut clean. Or excuses. Nurse Camila glanced between them, discomfort etched across her face. She's symptomatic, doctor. Elevated BP, headaches. If this is preeclampsia. Hydration and waitlist, Ethan snapped. But in the corridor, voices carried. 2 interns passed by, their murmurs slipping through the half-open door. Did you hear? Dr. Blake refused a pregnant patient again. With his mother standing right there. Words already out. Compliance will have a field day. Eleanor caught every word. So did Ava. Her lips twitched, not into a smile, but into something sharper, like a woman who had just confirmed a suspicion. She finally spoke, her tone calm, deliberate. I didn't walk in here to beg. I walked in here to see if the rumors were true. Ethan frowned. Rumors? Ava's gaze held his, steady and unblinking. That Mercy Tower's brightest star chooses policy over humanity. That he's forgotten what this profession was built on. The monitor beeped louder, faster, her baby's heartbeat rising. Camila moved quickly, but Ava raised a hand. I'm fine. Let it record. Eleanor's chest tightened. She'd seen silence destroy women before. But Ava's silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. And Eleanor, though she couldn't place why, suddenly knew, this young woman hadn't stumbled into Mercy Tower. She had come with a purpose. Eleanor caught every word. So did Ava. Her lips twitched, not into a smile, but into something sharper, like a woman who had just confirmed a suspicion. She finally spoke, her tone calm, deliberate. I didn't walk in here to beg. I walked in here to see if the rumors were true. Ethan frowned. Rumors? Ava's gaze held his, steady and unblinking. That Mercy Tower's brightest star chooses policy over humanity. That he's forgotten what this profession was built on. The monitor beeped louder, faster, her baby's heartbeat rising. Camila moved quickly, but Ava raised a hand. I'm fine. Let it record. Eleanor's chest tightened. She'd seen silence destroy women before. But Ava's silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. And Eleanor, though she couldn't place why, suddenly knew, this young woman hadn't stumbled into Mercy Tower. She had come with a purpose. Folded hands. Thank you so much to all my returning viewers, your support means the world to me. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now, so you never miss these powerful stories of courage, justice, and truth. Ethan frowned, irritated. What's the big deal? She's just another uninsured walk-in. Do you know her? Richard's face paled. He cleared his throat, but his words came slower, heavier. Yes. I know who she is. Eleanor caught the hesitation, the flicker of recognition in Richard's eyes. Something wasn't right. She studied Ava again, the quiet composure, the way she didn't flinch at Richard's words. Who is she? Eleanor asked, her voice low, demanding. Richard hesitated, torn between duty and fear. This changes everything. And in that moment, Eleanor understood, the woman who looked like a fragile patient might be far more than she appeared. The room felt smaller, the sterile walls closing in around them. Richard Hale stood rigid near the door, his briefcase still clutched tight, his eyes fixed on Ava Reed as though seeing a ghost. The silence stretched until even the monitor's steady rhythm felt like a drumbeat of revelation. Ethan broke first, scoffing. What is this, a joke? She's just some uninsured woman trying to get free care. Don't tell me you're buying into her little performance. But Richard didn't laugh. His voice, when it came, was hushed with awe. Ms. Reed isn't just a patient. She's the current chair of the United States Medical Licensing Council. The words landed like a gavel. Eleanor's head snapped toward Ava, her breath catching. The council. The body that controls every license in this country, Richard finished gravely. They can grant them. They can revoke them. They can end a career with a single vote. Ethan's face drained of color. That's impossible. Look at her. She walked in here looking like she couldn't even afford a bus fare. Ava finally spoke, her voice steady and cutting through the air like glass. Appearances are convenient, Dr. Blake. They reveal how people behave when they think no one important is watching. Her words hung heavy, undeniable. Eleanor felt her heart sink. All at once, the dignity in Ava's stillness, the way she had endured Ethan's arrogance without panic, the way she had let Richard's recognition speak for her, it all aligned. Ava had never been helpless. She had been observing. Testing. The fetal monitor beeped faster for a moment, then steadied again. Ava brushed her hand over her belly, then looked directly at Ethan. And now, she said softly, I've seen exactly what I needed to see. The hallway outside room 3 no longer hummed with routine. Word had traveled like wildfire, staff whispering, interns texting, a rumor that the chair of the U.S. Medical Licensing Council was inside, disguised as a patient. By the time the first reporter's camera appeared outside the sliding glass doors, the hospital's polished image was already unraveling. Inside, Ethan Blake paced like a man cornered, his polished confidence collapsing into desperation. This isn't fair. I didn't know who she was. I was following policy. Ava remained calm, her hand resting lightly on her belly, her eyes never leaving him. Policy doesn't excuse neglect, Dr. Blake. You didn't fail me because you thought I was powerful. You failed me because you thought I was powerless. Eleanor stood between them, her composure cracking. For years she had defended Ethan against critics, chalked up arrogance as ambition, coldness as efficiency. But watching him now, pleading not for the patient, but for his reputation, she felt the weight of her own denial. Richard Hale set his briefcase on the counter and pulled out a folder embossed with the council's seal. Chair Reed, he said formally now, no trace of hesitation in his tone, if you wish to file an immediate disciplinary action, the council bylaws grant you that authority. Ethan's head snapped up. What? Here. Now. His voice broke. Ava's expression didn't waver. Yes. Now. Because what happens in these rooms decides life or death. And if a physician can look at a pregnant woman in pain and choose paperwork over compassion, then that license is a danger to the public. Outside, the muffled sound of reporters rose, questions, flashes, the electric buzz of scandal brewing. Eleanor whispered, almost to herself, God help us all. Because she knew, this was no longer about whispers or rumors. This was about judgment, accountability, and a son who had just been weighed in the balance, and found wanting. The noise outside the hospital grew louder, camera shutters clicking, reporters calling out questions, the chaos of a story breaking in real time. Inside room 3, the air was heavier than steel. Richard Hale laid a single document on the counter, the council's insignia stamped in dark blue. Chair Reed, he said with measured clarity, you have the authority to open an emergency review and suspend Dr. Blake's license pending full investigation. Ethan's face went pale. He turned to Eleanor, his voice cracking. Mom, say something. Stop this, tell them this is insane. Eleanor's lips trembled, but she stayed silent. For the first time in her life, she saw not just her son, but the mirror of every arrogant man who had once hidden behind power. The memory of her late husband's cruelty pressed on her chest, suffocating. Ava's gaze was unflinching. Dr. Blake, she said softly, do you understand what medicine means? It is not about policy, or profit, or prestige. It is about standing between a fragile life and the void, and choosing life, every time. You looked at me and saw liability. Not humanity. I didn't know who you were. Ethan blurted, his voice shaking. That's the point, Ava replied. You shouldn't have needed to. Richard slid the form toward her, a pen clipped neatly to the top. One signature, Chair Reed, and his license is suspended. Ethan lunged forward, his voice desperate. Please, don't do this. I've worked my whole life for this career. Ava's hand hovered over the page. The monitor beside her pulsed, steady and strong, as if reminding her what was truly at stake. She glanced at Eleanor, who met her eyes with silent acceptance. Then, slowly, Ava picked up the pen. Outside, the reporters' voices grew louder, waiting for a verdict that would change everything. The pen scratched across the paper, it sounded louder than the reporters shouting outside. Ava Reed signed with a steady hand, her signature curling under the council's insignia like a verdict sealed in ink. Richard Hale collected the document and spoke with finality. Effective immediately, Dr. Ethan Blake's license to practice medicine is suspended pending full council review. The words slammed into the room like a gavel. Ethan staggered back as if struck. His white coat, once a symbol of status, now looked like a costume stripped of meaning. This can't be happening, he whispered, his voice hollow. You can't take everything from me like this, over one patient. One patient, Ava repeated firmly, her eyes piercing. That's all it ever takes. One ignored heartbeat. One refused cry for help. One person treated as disposable. And then the system rots from the inside. Eleanor's throat tightened. She had built Mercy Towers' image brick by brick, polished its halls with donor money, stood on stages praising its excellence. Now, with her son's arrogance exposed, the foundation shook beneath her. She whispered, "We buried too much under these walls." Outside, the media frenzy escalated. Reporters shouted. Council Chair Reid undercover at Mercy Tower. Star doctor stripped of license on the spot. Hospital board under scrutiny. Security guards hurried to block the doors, but the cameras already had their headline. Ethan dropped into the chair by the wall, his hands trembling. "You ruined me," he muttered, his voice breaking. "Mom, she ruined me." But Eleanor didn't move to comfort him. She stood straighter, her face etched with a mix of sorrow and steel. "No, Ethan," she said quietly. "You ruined yourself." And Ava sat there, calm as ever, as if the storm outside was exactly what she had expected all along. By evening, Mercy Tower Hospital no longer felt like a sanctuary of medicine, it felt like a courthouse. The boardroom, usually reserved for glossy donor presentations, buzzed with unease. Executives sat stiffly in their leather chairs, their eyes darting toward the woman seated at the head of the table, Ava Reid. No longer a fragile patient in a thrift store cardigan, she now carried the unmistakable authority of her position. Eleanor Blake sat 2 seats down, her posture unyielding though her face bore lines of fatigue. She had summoned the board quickly, trying to contain the firestorm. But reporters outside multiplied by the hour, and Mercy Tower's name was already plastered across national headlines. Richard Hale stood at Ava's side, the suspension order in his hands. "The council will investigate further," he said, his voice firm. "But Chair Reid's authority is not up for debate." One board member cleared his throat nervously. "Chair Reid, with all respect, why the disguise? Why come here like this?" Ava's gaze swept the room. "Because whispers reached my desk. Complaints. Letters from nurses. Rumors that some physicians here valued insurance cards more than human lives. I could have sent auditors, but I needed to see the truth with my own eyes." The room went silent. "I walked in as a poor pregnant woman," Ava continued, her voice unwavering. "And what happened? I was dismissed. Refused. Treated as less than human by a man who swore an oath to do no harm. That is why I came. And that is why Dr. Ethan Blake no longer holds a license." Gasps rippled through the table. Eleanor closed her eyes briefly, shame prickling her skin. Ava stood, her hand steadying her belly. "This hospital will decide whether to lead with compassion, or collapse under corruption. The choice is yours. But know this, the council is watching." The board members shifted uncomfortably, realizing this was no longer just about one doctor. It was about the soul of Mercy Tower itself. The next morning, Mercy Tower was surrounded by flashing cameras and restless crowds. Reporters clustered at the steps, microphones raised like weapons, their voices overlapping into a storm of questions. "Chairwoman Blake, do you defend your son? Did Mercy Tower knowingly allow patient neglect? Is Ethan Blake a reflection of hospital culture?" Eleanor Blake stepped out of the revolving doors, the hospital facade gleaming behind her like a lie she could no longer polish. For years she had hidden behind rehearsed speeches and donor banquets. But now the crowd saw not a chairwoman, they saw a mother, torn between blood and truth. She lifted the microphone with trembling hands. "My son made choices that broke the oath he swore. And while I will always love him as a mother, I cannot defend what he did as a leader." Her voice wavered, then steadied. "Compassion is not optional in medicine. It is the foundation." Gasps ran through the crowd. Some reporters leaned forward, hungry for more. Eleanor felt exposed, stripped of the armor of titles and wealth. But something inside her shifted, an old wound beginning to heal. Meanwhile, Ava Reid walked down the same steps, calm as a verdict delivered. The crowd erupted. "Chair Reid. Hero. Undercover operation saves lives. Will more hospitals be tested?" Ava paused, one hand resting on her belly, the other holding the rail. This was never about exposing one man, she said firmly. It was about exposing a culture that forgets patients are human first. No title, no insurance card, no wealth should determine whether a heartbeat matters. The crowd cheered, chants rising, accountability. Compassion. Justice. Ethan watched from a hospital window above, his reflection fractured by the glass. His career lay in ruins, his reputation shredded. And for the first time, he realized the legacy he thought he'd inherit had been rewritten, by the very woman he had dismissed. Weeks later, the story of Ava Reed's undercover visit to Mercy Tower had become a national conversation. News anchors replayed the moment she revealed her identity, editorials called her the quiet storm who shook American healthcare. Across the country, patients wrote letters of gratitude, nurses whispered her name like a rallying cry, and hospitals scrambled to review their own practices before the council's next move. At a televised press conference in Washington, Ava stood at the podium. The council's emblem shone behind her, and cameras filled the room. She wore no disguise now, her presence radiated both authority and compassion. One hand rested on her pregnant belly as she spoke. I walked into Mercy Tower as a patient who looked powerless. And what I experienced was not an isolated incident, it was a culture of arrogance that believes compassion can be optional. Let me be clear, it cannot. Healthcare is not about profit. It is about protecting the most vulnerable. If we cannot honor that, then we do not deserve the title doctor. Applause erupted, not polite but thunderous. Across living rooms, hospital break rooms, and classrooms, Americans leaned closer, inspired. Meanwhile, in a small apartment across the city, Ethan Blake sat alone, the television glow harsh against his hollow face. His license revoked, job offers withdrawn, his name now synonymous with failure, he finally faced the weight of what he had lost, not because of who Ava was, but because of who he had chosen to be. Eleanor Blake, no longer board chair, watched the broadcast from her garden. She had resigned publicly, admitting her failures as both leader and mother. But there was relief in the air, a freedom in truth. She whispered to herself, the cycle ends here. And as Ava's closing words echoed across the nation, they carried the promise of a new standard. Every heartbeat matters. Every patient deserves dignity. And as long as I hold this position, that will be the law. The audience rose to their feet, and in that moment, Ava Reed was no longer just the woman who exposed a failing doctor, she became the symbol of a movement that would change healthcare forever.
If you love this story and would want to listen to the next episode, please comment next in the comment section, and hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to get notified when the next video drops. Thank you.